Hi there. Hopefully everyone can hear us. It's Charlie and Graeme from Head Resourcing here.
Hello.
If you can drop a quick message in, if you can hear us okay, that would be fantastic. Just into the chat, we should be able to see that. And we will press ahead with this once we've got confirmation that people can actually hear us. Excellent stuff. That's great. Thank you very much, guys. So, as I said, this is going to be recorded. We've got far fewer people for this one, I think, because of that and because of the date. Being a Friday, I think there are fewer people who are able to give up their time for a webinar on IR35. But we're going to be running through the questions that everybody gave us last time round, and apologies for the technical issues again we had there. So we'll run through those questions and answer them as best we can at the moment. And if there are any other questions at the end, we'll open that up and see if we can get them sorted as well. So in terms of the questions, I'm just going to run through them just now. So the first question, so our head drawing up a short list of umbrella companies that they will recommend along with accurate breakdowns of the impact on contractors' pay. In terms of the umbrella list, we have that in progress. So Graeme has been working with Emily on that. The list is complete. The document is too large for us to email out, so we are currently waiting for our IT team to upload it onto a web platform for us to be able to send out a link. That should be sorted next week, and as soon as it is, I will fire that through to all of you. The document itself goes into detail for each of the FCSA accredited umbrella companies. It has some information that they've sent us, some embedded documents of information from them, and it just gives an overview of each of the companies. In terms of impact on contractors' pay, many of them have calculators on their websites, and I'd recommend you actually going there to play about with the pay rate calculators, just to see what they're telling you they would provide you in terms of take home each month. So moving on, any progress on the list of what umbrellas are doing regarding fees, also salary sacrifice into contractors' own pension arrangement to make maximum tax savings. So for this one, particularly with regard to pensions, we'd ask you to speak to the umbrellas directly. We're not tax advisors. We're never going to pretend to be tax advisors or pension advisors, and each of the umbrellas deals with pensions in a slightly different way. We know that PayStream, having spoken to them and a couple of contractors, seem to have quite a good deal on pensions, whereas others offer very, very different solutions. So unfortunately for that one, that is something that you need to do directly with the umbrella companies to investigate the pension side and also their fees, though we have summaries of fees where possible on the umbrella document that will be available next week. Will AWR rules mean that there may be some changes on T's and C's if I sign up to an umbrella? This is an interesting one and a question that I got earlier in the week. With regard to umbrella companies and contractors going via umbrella companies, AWR rules apply after 12 weeks. Now, quite a lot of umbrella companies are already on top of this and will be requesting information from us that we then request from the end clients. This is just to make sure that salaries, including bonuses, are commensurate and are in no way higher than the take-home that you would have doing a similar role. So they need to check that. And as contractors, it's very rare that you are paid less than a permanent employee doing a similar role. So that's usually less of a concern. But one of the things that will likely change is the hours stated on any contracts. So currently you'll all have professional working day with a certain number of hours per week minimum on the contracts with ourselves. When it comes time for you to move into an umbrella position, that number of hours, the minimum number of hours, has to be the same as the minimum number of hours required by permanent employees. So it needs to be commensurate. So that might be one of the things that does change if, for example, as with some of our clients, they have 40 hours minimum as a rule for contractors and 35 hours minimum as a rule for permanent staff. We would change that to be professional working day, minimum 35 hours a week for umbrella company contractors. So hopefully that makes sense. There will be another couple of things AWR-wise that companies need to check, but that's likely to be the only change. Have HEAD considered creating an umbrella branch themselves? So this is something that we have looked into as a part of the Taranata group. Now, we've no plans to do this at this point, but it is on our radar. Basically, umbrella companies are accountancy firms who provide temporary employment services. We are not an accountancy firm, nor do we have one in the group at the moment. So it would be either a new acquisition or starting something from scratch. And the umbrella companies that are out there and established have thousands, and in some cases, tens of thousands of contract and temporary workers through them that allow them to pull on more sizable clout and relationships to be able to offer benefits and solutions for contractors that we wouldn't have initially. So until we know there's actually a benefit to contractors with us actually building an umbrella for ourselves, I don't think we'd go down that route. I think the umbrella companies out there seem to be doing a decent job of it. We've certainly got a number of contractors who are happy with umbrella companies that they're with. So no plans at this point. Where an existing contract straddles the early April 2020 implementation date, does contractual setup have to change or wait until the end of the contract? So I'm guessing this is asking if something is changing. So either a company is saying that they are assessing you as inside, or a company is asking you to go via an umbrella. So basically, if there is a change to the status, be it a company saying they'll no longer deal with PSCs or an assessment of inside IR35, then there would be a contractual change before the implementation date. So, for example, the position that some of the banks are taking where they're saying no PSCs, they want to make sure that at the start of April, everybody is already against an umbrella or PAYE, and that there is nobody who is working through a PSC by the date of the implementation. And actually, they're doing that slightly beforehand. So there would be a change. If you are assessed as inside by a client who's doing assessments, then they will want to make sure that, once again, you're PAYE or via an umbrella before the implementation date. And actually, this takes us on to the next question. So, actually, 2 questions time, so I'll answer it here. The implementation date, the 6th of April, is actually the date by which all invoices need to have been paid. So payments need to have been processed for any invoices up to that date for them to avoid falling into the new rules. So I'll come back to that in a wee bit, just to go into a bit more detail about that. If you need to go via an umbrella, how does the client, umbrella, and agent relationship work for paying if payment goes through an umbrella? So essentially, an umbrella company is literally just replacing your PSC. Now, I've just been told that the PowerPoint isn't clicking through. So thank you for that. So let me just see. You should be seeing different questions on there. And if I can get confirmation that you're not just seeing the first page of the PowerPoint. Yeah. Let me just see. Can you hear okay? It's moving. It's fine. You can see the different questions. That's great. Excellent stuff. Okay, let me bring that back up. Okay, thank you very much for confirming that. Right, so where were we? Covered that one. AWR rules, umbrella, existing. So the umbrella company client-agent relationship. So the umbrella company essentially replaces your PSC in the chain. So they are your temporary employer for the engagement. The client engages the agency to go and find the contract resource. The contractor is engaged via an umbrella rather than a limited company. So that's all that happens in the chain. The only difference is that they are replacing your PSC. So essentially, we would secure your services. We have a contract with the end client. We have a contract with your umbrella company, who then in turn have a temporary employment contract with you. When you input your timesheet and update that, the umbrella company then invoices us. We then pay the umbrella company and invoice for that time with the client. So the only thing an umbrella company does is replace the PSC in that chain. Do the new rules apply to payments made after April the 6th, or invoices received after April the 6th, or work done after April the 6th? So this is what I was referring to earlier on. It applies to all payments made after April the 6th. So that's why companies are looking to get the changes made in January and February to give themselves time to make sure all the payments have been processed ahead of that 6th of April date. We have a couple of clients who are leaving it until the end of March, and we're going to make sure that those contractors are paid as long as we get the timesheets in on the 31st or the 1st of April to ensure that that is done. But we will need to make sure that those payments are made by the 6th of April. How many of your clients are prepared to increase day rates to cover move to umbrella companies? So at this point, none of our clients are indicating that they will be upping rates at all. And they have said and stressed to us that rates are going to remain the same. Time will bear this one out. Right now, that is the case. That's the party line from our clients. I think we'll see if that remains to be the case for everybody. There are always exceptions to these rules. We saw this in the public sector as well. And there are always instances where some contractors have better negotiating power because they are absolutely critical to a piece of work. So right now, the companies and the clients that we're dealing with are saying that they will not be increasing rates. They expect to get the same services for the same money. We will just see how that plays out. And we've basically told our clients that there is likely to be a slight increase to market rates over the course of the next 6 months. But we'll see if that's borne out. That will depend on everybody's reactions to this. There are a few roles up in the market which say outside IR35 with a year contract. Can we trust them? So if a company has made an assessment and they firmly believe that the role is out with IR35, there's absolutely no reason why they couldn't have a contract for a year. They could even offer a contract for 2 years if they could justify the project running for 2 years and that resource being required for that time. So there's no issue with that in terms of if I were a contractor looking at those opportunities, I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's likely to be public sector right now because they're the ones who are releasing inside and outside roles. Obviously, the rules haven't kicked in for the private sector yet, though we will start to see private sector roles advertised as likely to be inside or outside. You know, whenever a role is advertised, we're looking at the wording that we would use, but we would say the role has been assessed as outside because it's not guaranteed to be outside because you still need to assess whoever engages with them at that end, or a role has been assessed as inside, which means the client believes it is inside, and therefore that's what they're likely to go with. So there are a number of roles in the market that will say outside, and they could be for a year. They're likely to be public sector at the moment, but there's no reason not to trust them. If they've assessed, and they must have to be able to say that it's outside, then you should feel comfortable with that. But you'll still get that status determination statement that explains to you why it's outside. And you should always ask for that status determination statement for companies that are producing roles inside or outside, so that you can see what they look like. So are contractors at risk if they go umbrella with the same client? I.e., if that contractor suddenly goes PAYE, is it likely or more likely to trigger an HMRC investigation than if that contractor was to move to a different client via an umbrella company? Is the contractor mitigating the risk by moving clients? This is a really common question at the moment, and one I completely understand from contractors. So let's take the majority of the FS position at the moment. So the likes of Lloyd's, Barclays, RBS, Tesco Bank, right now they are not making assessments. So what they're doing is they're saying we are removing limited companies from our supply chain. We are therefore insisting that contractors with us via limited companies convert to umbrella or PAYE solutions by a certain date, but they are not issuing assessments. They are not saying you're inside or outside, and they're not saying your status has changed. They're just saying they're no longer going to have limited companies in their supply chain. So in those instances, as a contractor, that would give me a level of comfort, because I don't have an SDS or any assessment saying that I was outside last month, but I'm inside this month. There's nothing like that there. And moving from limited company to umbrella company, that's not really going to hit HMRC's radar at all. There's absolutely no reason why you would suddenly flag up as somebody that they would want to investigate. So from those contractors who are with those clients sidestepping the issue and just insisting that everybody go PAYE or umbrella, there is no more risk to you being investigated than there is right now your name being drawn from a hat, essentially. For those contractors who are engaged with the client and who are going to get an assessment, they're the ones that clearly feel that this is a question they want answered, because they will be the ones who are, say, performing a role and may have been performing that role for 6 months or more and are being assessed. And if the assessment comes back as well, the end client believes this is inside for whatever reason, they will then have an SDS saying you're inside. Now, HMRC have said and repeatedly stressed that they will not look backwards, as they did in 2017. In 2017, they definitely went knocking on contractors' doors to say, right, has your status changed? Well, if so, we want to investigate you. They've said that will not happen. However, they've caveated that by saying that will not happen unless they believe that criminal or fraudulent activity has taken place. So they've left themselves a little bit of a backdoor, but we've got to take them at their word. However, if you have an SDS from a client saying you're inside and you've had a couple of years as outside, I can understand as a contractor why you might feel uncomfortable with that. I don't think, based on what HMRC are saying, I don't think there is any more risk than you would have beforehand. But well, should we cut the contract short and move on? That could be an option, and certainly would remove any perceived risk from that loop. That's a personal choice for people. My personal view is that I don't think you are any more likely to be investigated than you were beforehand, and it's a 1 in 60,000 chance, according to a couple of the sites who've worked through the data. But it's your decision to make. It's whether or not you're comfortable with that. Now, I would hope that companies assessing will assess properly and use a tool in addition to or instead of CEST. But because HMRC are recommending CEST and are saying that if they do use the CEST tool, it will remove any liability from end clients, it's likely that they will use CEST. So there may be more inside determinations than there should be, because it is slightly flawed in that way. So once again, I think moving clients could be perceived to mitigate some of that risk. Ultimately, I don't think it will matter overall. I think you'd still be fairly safe. if you got an inside determination, but I can understand why contractors feel uncomfortable with that and may want to then cut their contract and move on, even if it's an inside or an umbrella role with somebody else, because it does cut that that tie, that umbilical cord. It means there's no trail there, and that SDS is redundant. What are we doing to aid in convincing financial sector end clients on doing assessments? Other than having lectured them repeatedly and explained that we believe they should be doing assessments and pointing out the legislation says they should be doing assessments and demonstrating how to do the assessments effectively.
And alternative tools, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
Obviously been in there to a few and shown other assessment tools.
Yeah, we've demonstrated, obviously, CEST. We've pointed out its flaws and shown a number of third-party tools which have been tried and tested in case law, some of which come with insurance as well. Some of our clients are receptive to that, but it's more the SMEs who are possibly open to a little bit more risk, or just the decision tree is a lot closer to this. So when I've been consulting with financial services clients, it's an IR35 working group more often than not. They report back, and then quite often it's the executive committee who make a call on it. And if there's somebody in the executive committee who just wants to avoid any risk and liability, who just sees that as a possibility, then they will overrule whatever the IR35 working group have recommended. So we're doing everything we can to influence, to persuade our clients down a full assessment route, but it's just not always effective, and it's very much often taken out of everybody's hands. On a previous email, Head mentioned the impact on PSCs is not as significant as it used to be. Can you give us some numbers and how you arrived at these numbers? So yes. So on a previous email, I'd given an update on IR35 and what was happening. 5 years ago or so, when I'd last looked at umbrella company versus limited company, there was a significant reduction in take-home pay between the two, and by significant I mean 25%. It was larger than it is now, in part because corporation tax and dividend tax have been going up, so they brought them closer together. The impact is still significant. I'm not going to belittle that. It's roughly around £1,000 a month difference between limited company and umbrella company take-home pay, depending on how you manage your limited company. It could end up being significantly more, depending on what you do with your limited company, whether you have other employees, how much you put into pensions, etc., etc. A lot of that stuff can affect it, but on average, it is about £1,000 a day for the sort of sorry, £1,000 a month, £1,000 a day. Yeah, that would be shocking. £1,000 a month difference. Thank you, Graeme. For most contractors, between sort of 350 and 600 a day, it works out as that. Now you can go and play about with any of the umbrella company rate calculators. Parasol's one is very good. There's a number of them on there. They will all give you roughly the same figures because there's very little in it. But you can see for yourselves what they suggest. Their limited accountancy solutions would give you in terms of take home per month, and then the umbrella company solution, and it does roughly work out as £1,000 a day. Do you have any idea how many PSCs are prepared to walk away? So at this point, I looked at the figures. We don't have clear statistics, but from the contractors that have been given options to go umbrella / PAYE or to leave, the majority at the moment are moving into the umbrella option. And I think that's because the way the market is going. At the moment, there's a clear direction of travel for a lot of the larger end clients. They are going down this route of either avoiding the assessments by insisting everybody go umbrella or PAYE, or they're saying they're going to assess, but it's likely most people will be inside. So the message from the end clients at the moment, and remember it is going to be in their hands after April, is that the majority of roles are going to be inside or PAYE/umbrella with no assessment. So I think quite a lot of contractors are being quite pragmatic. They seem to be taking the view that, well, fine, we'll look at extensions at the moment. We'll maybe move to umbrella right now. We'll maybe wind up our companies, but we'll keep one eye on the market to see and look at options for outside roles as they come up. So that seems to be the message we're getting from most of our contractors. We have seen probably about 5% at the moment walk away so far, but there are a huge number to work through, and we've still got a lot of clients who haven't come to a decision about how they're going to deal with the changes and the strategy that they're going to implement. And we're still working with those clients to try and influence them in the direction of assessments and to use a tool that's going to be effective for those assessments. So that's the end of the questions that I've been given so far. Let me just check the chat and see if there are any others just now. So if you've got any other questions, if you would like to use the Ask a Question section. What does AWR mean? Thanks. So AWR, that's the Agency Worker Rules or Regulations? Regulations, thank you. Agency Worker Regulations. They were brought in, I'm going to say about 5 years ago.
Yeah, approximately.
And they're there to protect temporary workers. So they were brought in mainly to protect those temporary workers who are generally lower paid and had bid taken advantage of by companies or unscrupulous agencies and were essentially being paid much less with no benefits than permanent employees to do the same work. So the agency worker regulations were brought in to address that problem. And basically what they say is that if you are a temporary employee and you work for the same end client for a period of 12 weeks or more, you should be entitled to the same pay scales, to an extent benefits and hours that any permanent employees get. So it rarely applies to contractors due to the fact that professional contractors are paid more. Even once you take PAYE into account, they're generally on a much higher salary than permanent employees. But that's what AWR is and what that means. So another question there, how do you get an SDS and who should supply this to the contractor? Hi there, Jim. So yes, the SDS, the status determination statement, if an end client is going down the route of assessing, then they have to produce a status determination statement. Now that can just be the CEST report. It could also just be an email saying you're inside or outside and here is why. That's all an SDS has to consist of. It has to consist of the assessment decision, so how they've assessed you in terms of have they assessed you as inside or outside, and also the reasoning behind that. Now the CEST printout and the results you get from many third-party tools create a report that is essentially an SDS. It gives you the determination at the top, and then it gives you the questions that have been answered and why these questions have the weighting they do, and how that has resulted in the answer. So that's what an SDS is. The end client, if you're already engaged, the end client is responsible for providing that to both the agency and the contractor, and they must provide that to you if they are doing an assessment. If it's a new role, then the way that we're recommending for clients is that they produce an initial SDS before they release a role. So the agencies have an SDS to go off that says inside, outside. that would then be supplied to anybody who accepts that role. They'll obviously be told whether it's inside or outside, or has been assessed as such beforehand. Then they get the SDS once they accept the job. And then if they wish to appeal, they can do it at that point. So there is that appeals process that every end client has to work into their assessment process as well, if they're going down that route. So I hope that's answered your question, Jim. Now, any other questions? I'll give it a minute. Looks like that might be it for the moment. But you can obviously contact either Graeme or myself or anybody else in the team here if you have any other questions. So it's cwood@headresourcing.com or gcox@headresourcing.com. We also have an IR35@headresourcing.com email address, and you can drop any questions or queries into that email address. We will then come back to you in due course. And you know we're on the end of the phone as well. Excellent stuff. This will be recorded, so you can listen to it again should you want to. We will come out with further updates in January as the market shifts and things become a little clearer. But you know where we are if you need anything in the meantime. Thanks very much. Cheers now.